head above the water to see what was going on. And there was no fear in watching that. The orca, some people claim, the orca senses that humans are quite different to anything else and never interfere with us. And in fact, even though it's known as a killer whale, and it does, and it's not a nice sight, because there is some video of a pod of orcas actually separating a young calf of a bigger whale, of a humpback, and actually then, of course, devouring it. And that's not a pretty sight. And they are killers, and they do attack seals, and they do feed off the sea. But there is no recorded attack of an orca against a human being. So do they sense that we're different? I don't know. But what I do know is that we didn't bother about it because we believed that it was harmless. It wasn't going to come and upturn the boat and devour us for breakfast. So to watch this magnificent beast come arcing out of the water was just one of the wonders of the world and one of the wonders of my life, and I've had many wonders. Brief? Yes, it arced out of the water and it didn't come back up. But we knew the pod was there. And we then leisurely paddled back to the shoreline, to Vancouver Island. And what a marvellous experience it was. In fact, going out to Paisley Island was always a marvellous experience, particularly because we would be there when the families went. We had it all to ourselves. It was idyllic. 20, 21-year-olds, perhaps we were a little older than that, 22, 23, able to romp around an island, a lovely island, partly civilized, although most of the houses, the summer houses, were shut up. Theoretically to study, but really to let our hair down away from the prying eyes of the Chancellor and the professors and all those other people that make a university tick. Anyway, sharks around British waters, sharks around Spanish waters. Undoubtedly, they will move down and they will be around Italian waters. So when you dip your toe in, just keep an eye open, because sharks aren't orcas. Sharks don't differentiate between a human and a seal, and they'll have your foot off in no time flat. So watch out. Jaws, Jaws, Jaws. 17 minutes it's gone. Let's try another rainy thing, shall we? Well, there's one here called Beautiful World. And indeed, sometimes you can look out and you can see the world covered by a thin veil, if that's the right word, a thin layer of rain as it's come down during the night. And indeed, the world does look beautiful, even if it's having great problems of its own right now. Beautiful world. that wouldn't make you want to leap out of bed, but nonetheless a very lovely piece reflecting the fact that out there it is a beautiful world, particularly when there's a little drop of rain pouring down, which there is this morning, I am sad to say. But a grey day it may be out there, a grey day it isn't in here. And just thinking about Lewis, there are a lot of people, because the town has changed in the 30 years that I've been living here. I came in 1990, so that's 30 years, isn't it? Yes, it is. 90, 100, 110, yes, 30 years I've lived here. And I've seen the changes in the town, as indeed those people who have lived here for most of their lives. The nature changes all the time. So there are some people here who now live here who may not realize just how important this town has been to the democratic process. Most people don't realize that the Battle of Lewis sparked the first little firelet, if you want to call it that, firelet, I like that word, firelet, of democracy, when King Henry III was defeated by Simon de Montfort and the barons, who promptly set up the first parliament with anybody having any say, not quite democracy as we knew it, but without having any say, at Westminster the day afterward. And that was in May of 1264. 1264, pretty sure I'm right on that. So that was the first spark of democracy. But what about the Magna Carta, they say? Yes, indeed. That was the first written attempt at trying to establish a democratic process. But King John, who didn't sign it, incidentally. Why? Because dear old Kingy could neither read nor could he write. So therefore the Magna Carta was drawn up, and I suppose I haven't seen an original. He put his seal to it, but he never signed it. So there is an interesting point, and the 50 years between Magna Carta and the Battle of Lewis, it went back to the old ways. The king sort of said, yes, hey chaps, oh yes, oh I'm terribly sorry, I've been a naughty boy, I've been spending your money on profligate things, I've been holding big parties and having lots of fun, while my brother Richard is away at the wars, at the Crusades. And then he forgot all about it, and everybody else just fumed until the Battle of Lewis with Henry turned things around, and this time it stuck. And okay, lots of things happened in between time for democracy to take shape, but not least of which is they happened in Lewis, because the next thing that happened that started to put us and steer us towards the democratic process, if indeed a democratic process it is today, was Tom Paine. Tom Paine. Oh, who the hell was Tom Paine? I've seen people actually say that in the high street in Lewis who now live here. Who was Tom Paine? Well, he was an adventurer. He was a rogue. He was not a very pleasant man. He was a drinker. And he was uneducated. But he was an incredible mind, and he formulated theories that he called the rights of man, and wrote a book on it, The Rights of Man, amongst other books, in which he said the divine right of kings is not on. We should be governed, or at least the people should have a large say in government. And on his way to America, because he was the man that actually, okay, there was a shot that was fired around the world that started the American Revolution, or the American War of Independence, or whatever you want to call it. But he persuaded the colonists, who thought that with their stomping of feet and screaming loud, that the king would actually come to their aid and tell Parliament to stop the iniquitous tea tax, which was the trigger for that war. And he said, no, they won't. I know them very well. They won't. And they were persuaded, and so the American War of Independence took place, and we, quote, lost America. Well, there you are. Did you know that? No, many people don't. Many people say, who the hell was Tom Paine? But his signature is on the Declaration of Independence. There are statues to him in the Philadelphia area and many other parts of the United States. as being the father of their independence and of their democratic process. And he lived here for 7 years as an excise agent, in other words, a customs man, making sure that the smugglers weren't selling illegal brandy without giving their due to the king. The theme. Here was Tom saying it was all wrong that the king should have such power, such authority, and such income. And in fact, he worked in his service, trying hard to make sure that the taxes, the import taxes, the tariffs that were put on these goods were being paid. Oh my goodness me, 26 minutes, we're almost out of time. Let me just say, this morning apparently there is a bombshell book out, which the newspapers claim will probably finish Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family, that they are at last going to be sacked. I think it's a great pity. I do think it's a great pity, because whatever you may think about the system, we've had solid revolutionary free government in this country because of the state, the combination we have in our governance. We have kingship, we have oligarchs, the House of Lords, and we have the House of Commons. And as Plato in his Republic said, if you've got that, it's the finest form of government because it's almost impossible to overthrow. Because the division of powers. I mean, for instance, the Queen is the head of the armed forces. She says charge. It doesn't matter what the House of Parliament may say. The troops are going to follow the commander. That's what they're trying to do. But anyway, we won't get into that sort of thing, but we do have very stable government because of the 3 levels or the 3 tiers. And those people who try to undermine that had better have a very, very good system of governments into place, because there's not much else that has worked. Yes, it works for a time, but then, once again, as Plato says, the corruption of government takes place after a while, and it's replaced by something else. Well, luckily, we have stability when it comes to governance. Oh, we may have turmoil in the House of Commons. We may have some dolts and, yes, let's say dickheads who represent us in that august body. But as a system of government, it's very stable. 28:31. I've got to think about saying goodbye. What shall I say goodbye with this morning? Oh, I can't go for... We've got to be traditional, I think. We've got to be traditional this morning, and we'll go out with... no, we won't. We won't be... I said I wasn't going to play Yeva, but I'm going to play out with it this morning because it's such a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. Yeva Soyan, out of Armenia, out of Yerevan, the lyrics written by her sister Star. Here she is, and I will say... Well, no, I won't. I'll pop in and say goodbye over the top of that.
Down, I leave you alone. Try